Hi everyone, welcome back to the Candid Book Club. This is Linda, this is Omar, I'm Mimi, Tanya and Jess. And today we're going to be discussing non-fiction reads. Now, it's not something we normally gravitate to. However, we know a lot of you out there picking up a book for the first time might gravitate towards non-fiction, particularly if you're a bloke. So we thought we'd share with you some of our favourites in the non-fiction world, some that we've read recently, some from a little while ago, but just to give you an idea of some non-fiction reads to add to your bookshelf. So, Tanya, why don't you kick us off? What's one of your favourite non-fiction reads?
My favourite has been How We Met by Huma Qureshi. I don't really read a lot of non-fiction. I just find it a bit boring. So we read this in 2020.
Yeah.
Read it, and we did a book club with Huma online on Zoom. Honestly, amazing book. I really enjoyed that, and I feel like as a South Asian, I really resonated with a few of the topics throughout the book. So yeah, I loved that one. I would pick up more. I know you guys read quite a lot.
Yeah.
So the ones that you guys are going to mention, they're ones that I think I'd pick up in the future.
I think I'm with you, Tan, in that mostly I don't really tend to gravitate towards non-fiction, but I do pick up a lot of memoirs, and I think that's where I funnel into the non-fiction type of book. And I think my favourites that I've read over the last few years have definitely all been memoirs and sort of people's real stories. The first non-fiction sort of book that I remember really falling in love with was Running Like a Girl by Alexandra Hemingsley. It's about running, yes, but it's not, because it's about so much more than that. It's about finding yourself, finding your confidence, and, you know, just being able to achieve something, no matter how small, no matter how big. And I found it really inspiring, and then set off and ran 2 half marathons on the back of that.
Wow.
So I can say that it works. I also recently read One of Them by Musa Okonga. That is an incredible memoir of his time at Eton. It's really a look behind the scenes and behind those sort of gilded gates, as it were. I
love that one.
Not often written about, not often spoken about, and particularly from a young Black woman's perspective. It's fantastic, and I can't recommend that one enough.
Agreed.
Yeah,
love that one.
Love that. Don't sleep on that book.
Yeah. And it's really short, so it won't take you that long. And it's definitely not boring.
Mm-hmm.
And also, very recently, I read Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zorna, or Japanese Breakfast, as she's also known, which is an incredible memoir of her and her mother as her mom is undergoing treatment for cancer. It's very emotionally devastating. I cried a lot. I know Oma's read this too. Can vouch for how sad it is, but it's really worth going through. And it's just really a testament of a mother-daughter bond and the strength of it in life and death. So yeah, that's where I'm.
Lovely recommendations. What about you, Anna? What are your favourites?
So I don't really lean towards non-fiction, just because generally I tend to find them quite factual, quite heavy. And for me, like, reading is escapism, so it's not really my go-to. But I think this year I decided to make a conscious effort of just trying to read a bit more non-fiction. So I am halfway through one called She Said. So it's about the two journalists, who broke the Harvey Weinstein story. And it's now turned into a film, so I'm waiting to finish the book before I watch the film. So that's been really interesting so far. The other one that I was recommended, it's in this pile somewhere. It's called The Brown Girl Guide, I believe.
Brown Girl Like Me.
Brown Girl Like Me. I haven't read it yet, so it's not that it's not memorable. But that was recommended as well. And I think as a South Asian, I just think it's important to read books that maybe I can relate to a little bit more, things that I probably wish I had growing up, so that we can recommend it to like other younger women. So that's one that I am going to read next. And I also listened to one. So what I found is that anything that's a bit more self-help type books, I find with Spotify's like new feature where you can listen to audiobooks, I was listening to that one on the car journey with like my husband, and I found that one quite interesting. So it's called The Mountain Is You. So it's just about like, you know, getting over self-doubt and things like that. And
Did you fall asleep?
I didn't fall asleep.
I would fall asleep.
But I think my concentration waned here and there, but it still had a lot of like important tidbits that you can sort of take and I was nodding along quite often, and I'd like stop it and like discuss things with him. So that was quite good. I do recommend that one as well. And it's only like 5 hours or something, or 6 hours on audiobook, so quite short, relatively quite short.
Nice. Well, don't forget, if you like any of these recommendations or don't like them, we want your opinion. So make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Linda, what are your non-fiction reads that you enjoy?
Do you know what? I like non-fiction.
Yeah.
I don't read it as much as fiction, but when I do, I'm like, oh, I really like non-fiction. But I also, like you guys, like memoirs are my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Every now and again, I will read something that's like factual. But yeah, that's kind of long. Like, I feel like I need to read something with you need a highlighter, don't you?
Yeah.
Something factual. It's like,
margin.
yeah, I'm not at uni anymore, so kind of over it. But in recent times, absolutely loved How We Met as well. That was like a standout for me, especially like I read that during lockdown, so that was like tick, loved it. In recent times, read How to Save Babylon by Safia Sinclair, which is just mesmerizing, captivating. It's a story about a Rastafarian family, a girl who breaks free from Rastafari, and just like how she just comes into her own. And yeah, it was just so respectfully written as well. She's not shaming her family, and she writes in the same like vernacular as her parents would have written.
Okay.
And I just absolutely loved it. And I was reading it while I was traveling through Jamaica, which made it way more vivid. And she's such a charismatic author as well. I just can't wait to see what she comes up with next. I think she's writing fiction, and I would love to see the shift from non-fiction to fiction.
That makes me think of Educated
Love
by Tara Westover, which is one we haven't mentioned, but that is also non-fiction.
So you know what? Like, people are saying that How to Save Babylon is basically like a Jamaican person or a person of colour's version of Educated.
Yeah.
I think it's way more layered than that, but the two are quite similar in story. So I absolutely recommend it. And there's loads of pictures and stuff. Is there pictures? No, I might be making it up. I've seen a lot of pictures. And yeah, great story. And then more recently, I've read a few Palestinian voices, and there's a lot of memoirs by Palestinian people that are written out there because of the Nakba of 1948. So that's the catastrophe where a lot of Palestinian families had to leave Palestine because of the Israeli occupation. So I feel like you need to read up on that. And there's, a lot out there. But the notable ones that I read were I Saw Ramallah and by Mourid Barghouti, and In My Mother's Footsteps by Mona Hajar Halabi, which I know all of you lot are going to borrow at some point.
Yep.
So yeah, I think those are my top non-fiction reads in recent times.
Nice, thank you. So, Barney, we'll finish up with a few of mine then. I also, like Linda, do quite enjoy a bit of non-fiction, especially memoirs, normally about sports people, but don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with them. So the ones I've read recently, you're welcome. The ones that I read this year, so one that I read really recently actually was a memoir by a journalist turned activist called Shireen Tadros called Taking Sides. Didn't realise it when I picked it up, but actually she was one of the only people on the ground in Gaza during 2008, which was the last time there was a shelling campaign. And it's really, really powerful to hear her story. One thing I always think about memoirs like this, relatively speaking, she's quite young. She's not really like in her 80s at the end of her life writing about her whole life story, but it's still so powerful that it's such a vivid experience being on the ground in Gaza, moving to Egypt, then realising that journalism was quite frustrating and she wanted to turn into an activist to actually have an impact. So brilliant story. I was very, very slow to picking up The Good Immigrants. Sorry, Linda, you were telling me to read that for ages. Finally read it this year. Really recommend.
Better late than never.
Thank you. A collection of essays with people writing about basically the immigrant experience in the UK. There is a US version, which I will get around to picking up, I'm sure.
I wouldn't
like it.
I don't like
No.
it. Did you like it?
I haven't read it actually.
I
think with the UK version.
didn't resonate
I don't know
with
why
it.
I would.
Yeah.
I think it's because obviously it's written for the American.
The American experience.
I'll resonate with
Yeah,
it.
maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. So stick with the UK version then for the UK viewers. And I also really, really honourable mention to a really great writer called Angela Saini, who has written quite a few brilliant non-fictions actually. Superior, which is about the underrepresentation of minority groups in scientific research. I am about to read Patriarchs, which is about the male-female bias that exists and where that comes from. It's a really good, I know what everyone's been saying about kind of something that's very heavy. Her books are heavy, but very, very well done.
Yeah.
Well worth sitting with pencil and a highlighter next to, as opposed to
Inferior
noise.
as well.
I read Inferior as well. Really good book.
Excellent.
Really, really good book. So massive honourable mention to her. Because and also don't forget some of your favourite fiction writers like Ella Shafak write little non-fiction essays, periodicals. There's lots of variety out there. So there's plenty of opportunity to pick up some non-fiction. Thanks so much for joining us. Please let us know what you like, and don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you soon.